we present to you a biographic film that we did on Justice Venkatachaliah.
Justice Venkatachaliah was born in Bangalore on the 25th of October 1929. He did his schooling from Fort High School and graduated in science from Central College, Bangalore. He had a desire to do medicine, but his father was not very keen on that, so he took to studying law. His father, Mr. Narayana Rao, was an eminent lawyer and was also the founder principal of the Government Law College. Justice Venkatachaliah studied there and passed out in 1951, having stood first in his class. He then joined his father's chambers. The early passing of his father came as a shock to the young lawyer. He had no choice but to carry the burden of reputation and also the pending caseloads from his father's practice. The difficult circumstances served to strengthen his resolve and were possibly a catalyst into his evolution of becoming a lawyer of great eminence. Of course, the people who knew him even in those days remember him as a rather remarkable man.
The great Justice Krishna Iyer described Justice Venkatachaliah as that great jurist of light and learning.
He is the definition of what a judge should be, which is difficult for most of us.
My brother had that brain as his weapon, and he sharpened it, honed it by reading books, by studying.
Whenever you meet him, you will be elevated, you will be enlightened.
Very independent, maintained the integrity of the office very high.
There are many Chief Justices who fade away after retirement. Justice Venkatachaliah has certainly not faded away. He still remains very active at this age of something like 93 years.
Everything about childhood is interesting. In the sense, we were a middle-class family, and neighborhood was all middle class.
All of us were cricket fans. But somehow my elder brother had that kind of leadership right from an young age. We used to follow him.
Venkatachaliah was not a fashionable or flamboyant lawyer. He was a sound lawyer, very deeply rooted in legal theory and legal philosophy. In fact, he would say that his father was really a legal philosopher.
I greatly profited from his meticulous notes. He was a case which I thought was impossible. The client was saying, "No, sir, your father was not pessimistic about it. Please look into it." And then I saw in one small sentence that turned the whole thing. The case turned and the fundamental was different.
Venkatachaliah, as a young boy, this is what I have heard from him, and was asked to read the leader in the Hindu every day to the grandfather. And he would be given some small pocket money, 1 anna or something in those days. And if he faltered in his pronunciation or intonation, there would be a tap on the head. So that's perhaps the way the young boy was tutored and inculcated into reading and learning.
Those were very gracious days and leisurely times. Society didn't have to face the kind of challenges that it has to face today.
People who have known him even in those days always remember him as a marked man, not someone who reaped rich harvests in terms of money.
In many cases I returned the fee. In one case I told him I worked 3 days, you give me my fees 3,000. He had put in 30 or 35,000 in the plate. I returned it.
On the eve of his elevation to the Supreme Court, where the then Law Minister, Mr. Shiv Shankar, had met him at a wedding reception.
And he said, the Prime Minister must also know whom he is appointing. It's a procedure that you should call on the Prime Minister.
He said, I'm sorry, but I'm not in the habit of meeting anyone, leave alone the Prime Minister, with whom I have no work.
He even said, caution that I might be putting my appointment at stake. I told him I don't have the impertinence to interfere with the course of providence. If that happens, it will be for the good of the country.
So shall I convey this to the Prime Minister? Please do convey to the Prime Minister exactly the same words. I understand the Prime Minister felt happy and conveyed to the Attorney General, Mr. Parasharan.
He said, Rajiv Gandhi sent for me, Prime Minister, and told me I am proud to be a Prime Minister of a country. There are still judges like this. Kindly announce his name today before he withdraws his consent.
Mr. Nariman himself has also told me this. His courtroom was like a classroom where you did get education. It is said that wherever Napoleon stood, that's the center of the battlefield. Wherever Venkatachaliah sat, whether as judge number 7 or judge number 4 or judge number 3, that was the center of the bench. And this was on the eve of his taking over as Chief Justice, and he said, now of course the center is rightfully his as he takes over as the Chief Justice of India.
The great gentleman Nazim Rao, just the previous day before the new Chief Justice is sworn in, the outgoing and the incoming Chief Justices are entertained dinner. He said, Chief Justice, you will find my relationship with you cordial. I told him, the Chief Justice and the Prime Minister are on cordial terms. It's not been the interest of democracy. I expect our relationship to be proper.
Justice Venkatachaliah's contributions to improving the speed of dispute resolution have been phenomenal.
The very first thing I did was to appoint the Ahmedabad Institute of Management to study the case law management and advise us how international institutions are working, similar institutions, and how we should upgrade our methods.
At the time when Justice Venkatachaliah was the Chief Justice, if my memory serves me right, the backlog had been reduced to something like 28,000.
Cases are pending for 15 years where it should not be pending for more than 15 months. It could all be streamlined if you take one strong look at it and say which part of our procedure is judicial, which is purely administrative and managerial in nature, which can be handled to systems experts, and the pure judicial side could be handled by the judges themselves.
He brought that lens of human development in everything that he has done, whether it's the Human Rights Commission or the Constitution Review Commission or what he's done subsequently.
He said, I want you to come as Director General in the National Human Rights Commission. Then I told him, this is what the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister has said. They are sending me as ambassador. And he asked me not to commit myself to anything. He said, what is their ambassadorship? You will fly flag and that huge... But here we can do something substantive to this country. Human rights are under stress here.
Because the two things, vastness of the problem, hugeness of the problem. Administration has now devolved itself into coherent, concentrated action. And third is misleading statistics. These three things are the bane of this country.
UN Commissioner for Human Rights said that India, under his chairmanship of the NHRC, showed how even with or without provisions in the charter or the enactment, how with the correct people at the helm of affairs, human rights become meaningful.
And that is what is his deep philosophical principle, which is also reflected in what he has done post-retirement in Bangalore, whether it is with the Sri Sathya Sai Institute, whether it is with the Public Affairs Center, whether it is with the foundation.
Sri Venkatachaliah ji has inspired and motivated and led the Samatvam Trust to launch successfully 4 projects for the poor and needy people with diabetes and related problems.
When I spoke to him about it, he was the first one to provide me a substantial amount of donation to the trust.
Most of the judges, for example, after retirement, they take an assignment. He said, no, I have been the Chief Justice of India. After holding that post, I will not go and take any work for which payment is going to be. My pension, I will live on my pension.
Justice Ravindran told me that, and I agree. He said, Sudesh, his house in Baspudi is an open house. I said, yes, very true. And he himself calls it a free legal aid clinic.
I was walking down the corner of the road. Just near the corner, there was a middle-aged woman from the village. So she comes up to me and says, there is an old man here who gives free advice and justice. Where is he? Where can I meet him? That was one of the most touching moments for me.
He has a kind of spiritual reverence. Anybody who is in contact with him, it rubs off on you.
He came to see me to my sister's house. So some brother of his, he told me to sing a song. So I sang this song. Madhava Mamava Deva Krishna Yadava Krishna Yadukula Krishna Madhava Mamava Deva
She was an extraordinary person. I didn't know she also came from a small family, like us, a middle class family. But she was extremely spiritual person, as it turned out in later life.
I have to help him, but now in his old age. But he gets up early morning and gives me very, very good coffee. I will take on the bed itself and enjoy it.
One common thing every time I used to tell when I came back from school, I was talking about success, career, jobs, money and all that, he would say, what is the qualification to be the Lord Chancellor of England? Then I would say, what? He said, first thing, you should be a gentleman. It doesn't matter if you know a little law. So he always focused on being a gentleman, helping others.
Tata really loves me, and ever since I was little, he's been playing with me, and I enjoy playing chess with him. He's really smart, and I can't beat him most of the time. Whenever I have any doubts, he instantly gives me the solution, and I always look forward to having deep conversations with him. Usually when we have a meal together, and I feel that it really helps me a lot.
I am personally grateful to God for the long innings that He gave me. But when I reflect upon the predicament of our society and fellow men, it looks as if we collectively, as a nation and as a people, could have done much better.
The man was as great as a judge, and for years and years to come, memory will hold back the door. And those who have had the good fortune of knowing him in whatever manner, appearing before him, sitting with him, talking to him, would always remember his great magnanimity and unfeigned humility.
We worship the dust of the lotus feet of Honorable Sri Venkatachaliah, so he is our God, living God on earth.
A banyan tree shelters, so has he. All those who have come in touch with him, had contact with him, have learned, have grown and have transformed. That, I think, is his true greatness.
A tree like a banyan tree is completely selfless. It stands there in the heat, provides shade to others, and is not in the business of proclaiming its existence, nor does it proclaim what it is doing for others. It is happy just providing shade and shelter to others.
Trees provide fruit for everyone, and in all their selflessness do not consume the fruit themselves. They provide shade to everyone and selflessly endure the heat themselves. The banyan tree's selflessness is a great metaphor for Justice M.N. Venkatachaliah, a towering personality who lived a life of selflessness, and he deserves the gratitude and a resounding applause of over 1 billion Indians.
Ladies and gentlemen, SKOCH Challenger Lifetime Achievement Award for Justice M.N. Venkatachaliah. Justice M.N. Venkatachaliah is adjudged the most erudite and urbane judge who has adorned the Supreme Court of India. A judge with a deep knowledge of the philosophy of law and the ways of men, he provided moral and intellectual leadership. During his term of 7 years at the Supreme Court, he authored 90 judgments and was a part of 482 benches. His commitment to reducing the pendency of cases and making the judiciary more and more accountable was unwavering. He served as the Chief Justice of India between 1993 and 94 and authored the Constitutional Bench judgment in the Bhopal gas leak tragedy case, in addition to many more. Justice Venkatachaliah did splendid work as a chairman of the National Human Rights Commission and continues to work on anti-corruption and human rights issues. He is a man and a judge for all seasons. He is a personification of sweetness and light, verily a living legend. A big round of applause for Justice M.N. Venkatachaliah, and equally deserving of a standing ovation.
You all stand up and applaud for him. Justice Venkatachaliah, this is a very small award compared to what you are and what you've done. I hope you accept this. This is in honor of, and people of, you made Supreme Court of India as People's Court of India, and we will never forget that. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Esteemed Shri Samir Kochar ji, esteemed Shri Fali Nariman, esteemed Chief Justice Deepak Mishra ji, esteemed Dr. Vivek Debroy, and all the respected awardees, esteemed invitees, gracious ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply touched by this gesture on the part of Shri Samir Kochar ji choosing me for this award, rescuing me from 30 years of anonymity. I accept this in all humility and reverence. But I seek your kind permission of all of you to dedicate this award to those great lawyers and judges who have made the Supreme Court of India a great institution. In the early 50s of the last century, I had the privilege of sitting in the court hall of the Supreme Court, watching the proceedings in awe as a young lawyer. I had the opportunity of witnessing over the past 8 decades the great changes in society. India's independence and the making of the Indian Constitution were the most sublime spiritual events which changed the way we live. The debates in the Constitution Assembly rose to spiritual heights in response to the ambitions of a great mass of people, great mass of humanity, grimly struggling to be reborn into freedom and a life of dignity. Post-World War aspirations for a conflict-free world and protection of human rights informed our constitutional values and aspirations. Yet our basic ambitions for a clean electoral system, an honest corruption-free public administration, and a system of speedy justice have remained largely unrequited. Confucius cautioned that it is dangerous to live in interesting times. The world of technology transforming our lives every day. Its exploits are mind-blowing. Newer concepts of property and wealth, and newer ideas of economic privileges hitherto unknown to our economic and legal systems are emerging. Masses of humanity will be kept out of the reach of these sophisticated mechanisms and aggravated by inept and corrupt and inefficient political responses and innate weaknesses of the legal system. The political systems and political leaders are yet to comprehend and grasp the magnitude of the imminent changes, resulting in cynicism and disillusionment. Cynicism is a tool of destruction and not a tool of reconstruction. Hamilton and John Adams of the United States of America spoke of the destructive power of a disillusioned populace. Democracy is often conceived as merely as a product, the outcome of a process identified as periodic, free and fair elections. That is the definition of democracy, Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. But there are other moral, spiritual criteria and inclusive concepts of the idea of a real democracy. Less democracy degenerate into a mere majoritarian elective despotism. Ladies and gentlemen, in regard to the electoral system, John Stuart Mill's sovereign remedy for the ills that attend democracy was proportional representation. In praise of Mill, John Morley, who was his great admirer, said, "Respect for him became an element of men's own self-respect. The right to have a grievance heard was the right to have the grievance redressed. He believed ardently in the justice of proportional representation, a scheme by which like-minded voters of a sufficient number could, as it were, form their own constituency." But Pandit Nehru thought that was a source of perpetual coalition. Years afterwards, Mill himself wrote, "As far as I have been able to observe, the doctrine of proportionate representation has found favor with nobody." The more immediate and important concerns of today are the way in which we harness the exploits of science and technology. Society is yet unable to grasp the magnitude of the demand that these changes make on the educational, judicial and administrative systems. Many economic forces unleashed by the new technology may tend to remain outside the official system and outside state controls. Many share the view that the prime focus should be on the system of administration of justice and legal education. The Bar Council of India has a great responsibility of devising methods to integrate legal education, the consequences of the influence of modern technology on society and the emerging new economies. Law degrees must envisage constant and periodic institutional revision for every graduate to come back to the academia to update his knowledge and skills with regular periodicity. The academic content and curricula need more comprehensive domain knowledge of the areas of law and technology and the intensity of their interactions. Political societies and political states and social organizations were formed by mutual agreement as businessmen organize their own goods to guarantee the right of citizens, because men uncombined found it difficult to make their rights secure. Exercise of physical force became the monopoly of the state. State cannot betray this great trust. Ultimately, the greatest debate of this century will be what we owe each other. A reassessment of the social contract
spoken of from time to time, and even from times immemorial, from Plato, John Locke, Rousseau, to modern times. The era of Indian form of quietism is over. Looking back these 70 years since freedom, one dominant emotion that overtakes me is that as a nation, we could have perhaps managed better or mismanaged better. The debate will be on a global scale, in a non-trivial sense. That is the implication of the global democratic urge. Man is incomplete by himself. He needs the companionship of his fellow men for his own fulfillment. Democracy provides the highest and the finest opportunities for this mutual enrichment. Brandeis caution, either you have democracy or the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. You cannot have both. Ladies and gentlemen, people have a right to dream. It's our duty to give meaning to this world. People have a right to dream. It's our duty to give meaning to this world. Worship of humankind is the new religion. True culture is the sensitive awareness of the feelings of others. Culture does not imply an authority outside ourselves, but is a measure of all wise and beautiful things. A country worth living in cannot get on without reverence to culture. I have a word of friendly advice to the young lawyers. Be careful about what you take out of life. There is an old saying, take what you want, God said. Take you want, God said. Take it and pay for it. It was Bishop Wilson's caution. Never go against your best light. Never go against the best light you have. Secondly, take care that your light be not darkness. Ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply touched and moved by the gesture. I am grateful to Samir Kocharji, but I must tell you that in the period in which I had something to do with the work of the Supreme Court, great amount of contribution was from Justice Ahmadi and Justice Verma. Justice Ahmadi masterly guided the process which I started, and result was for everyone to see. From nearly 4.5 lakh of cases, the Supreme Court almost reached a zero-area court. It had just 19,000 at one point of time. That was all because of the great work of the great judges we had. We had a team which was a very noble team, and I am grateful to each one of them. I am deeply indebted to all of you for your blessings. I am 93 now, and Samir Kocharji has given me new enthusiasm to look up to the world for some contribution I may yet make. Thank you. I am most grateful to each one of you for your kindness. Thank you.